How's it going? It's the Fuzz! Custom card contest number 4 is concluded. Now for this one, we only have about 15 submissions, so I'm just gonna go through all of them. And I'm just gonna skip the ones that made it to top 5, and I'm gonna cover those at the end, so I don't have to talk about cards twice. So that means that if you're on the forums and you know what order these were submitted, you could kind of figure out which ones were the top 5 because I skipped them. But probably if you're watching this, you're not gonna bother doing that. So anyways, let's kick it off with, the first card that's not in the top 5. The first 10 cards I'm going to cover are not in the top 5. And the last 5 cards are going to be in order from number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, and then number 1, the best card. Let's get the show on the road. So we're going to start things off with Yvancer's submission, Apprentice of Zash. So the effect is you just put a Wall of Flames into play for 2 mana, but you skip your draw phase and you can only use this once. So you skip your draw phase because the Wall of Flames itself draws a card at the end of the turn when it goes away. That's a pretty cool idea. The only problem is Wall of Flames is an absolutely trash card. So being able to put it into play is probably a more efficient way of using it than actually trying to run the card. But unfortunately, again, Wall of Flames is absolutely terrible. Like, even getting it out for free. Because you're not getting card advantage, because you're redrawing anyways. And spending 2 mana to play more Walls of Fire is just not too good. But I like the idea. A card that puts another card into play. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. So, even though it's not in the top 5, it's still a good quality submission. Well done. Moving on, we've got YS Chaos, the 2-time winner, submitting his card, Morgana, the Title Mage. A very interesting choice for name, because Morgana, for anyone who is familiar, is a character from the Legends of King Arthur, and she's not a very nice woman, so she's probably a lot less friendly than this mermaid creature here. Anyways, so the effect is, while on the support row, you can cycle a basic shrine, or you can discard a non-basic shrine for a buff. I'm gonna say, I think this is the worst card in the contest. I'm sorry, YS Chaos, but here's the problem. The second ability says you can discard a non-basic shrine to give, I assume this, a +2 attack and +1 speed. The problem is, these effects only apply when she's on the support line. If she's on the support line, that means she can't attack. And if she can't attack, what's the point of the ability? And you have to discard a non-basic shrine. So that second ability, unfortunately, just doesn't do anything. And the first ability, okay, Mana Flood is annoying. I get it. But come on. I have a feeling you just submitted this card just for fun. Because I know that you could have done better if you wanted to. But you know what? You get funny points for trying to fix Mana Flood. Unfortunately, this card is not the answer, I'm afraid. Moving on. We've got the Archont Magus from Magus. Supposed to be the big badass mage. Can't attack. You get 2 cards when he comes in and when he leaves. And then whenever you play a spell, you buff all your mages by +1/+1. Yeah, that's cool. But for a card this big, 4 aspect, 4 mana, it's just not quite enough. The value is decent. I mean, you draw 2 cards with him. That's not bad. But you could just play Ancient Wisdom to draw 2 cards. And because he can't attack, that really sucks. I really think he should be able to attack, because then there would be reason to play him. You play him with maybe like a few other mages, and then you can get like a big attack going. But mages are kind of all over the place. There's a few good ones, but it's not really an archetype you'd build a deck around. And for a single card to make you want to play mages, it would have to be absolutely ridiculous. Unfortunately, this synergy is not quite there. I think if he could attack, that would be a start, because then he could swing for like 5 or 6 damage. He's got a huge stat line, obviously. But if he can't attack, it's a bit of a bummer. It's not a terrible card. It's kind of reminds me of the Magi Expedition, which is a big, fun, decent card. But 4 aspect, 4 mana cards have to be insane to be played. But, looks cool. The art, I think that's Jace Beleren from Magic the Gathering, if I'm not wrong. Which seems pretty appropriate So, cool card. It's just not quite on the level of awesome. But it's a quality submission nonetheless. Moving on. We got Reflector Mage from Lyris, a Wisdom Order card. So I'm pretty sure this card art is from Elder Scrolls Legends. I forgot what that creature is called, but it basically buffs the health of other minions, which is kind of appropriate. So the way this one works, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that if this gets dealt damage that's not combat, you can pay that much mana. It says 1 for each damage dealt. And then if you do that, you can deal that damage to an enemy creature. So if this gets fireballed, right? The damage is dealt instead. So this isn't dealt damage. So if your opponent tries to fireball this, you can pay 3 mana, and then you fireball something else, essentially, I think. I assume you can't just redirect some of it. You have to redirect all of the damage. It's not very clear. But more likely, you can just pay the mana and redirect the damage to something else. That's kind of neat. It seems a bit of a counter, specifically to Rage. Even though there are other aspects that can deal damage. Like, the Soul Projection can do it, and there's a few Wisdom spells that deal damage. Although, it is quite a bit of... You have to save a lot of mana to do this. I think it's a cool idea, but it's probably not practical to run something like this. That said, the stat line is not too bad. You could just put him in the front. It's a 2-3. Just like Spellwarden, it could probably protect you pretty well. And it's a priest. And would you put it in a priest deck? Yeah, actually, maybe you would put it in a priest deck, because you could just protect your other guys if you're running yellow and blue. Actually, the card is not that bad. So, actually, you know what? It's a quality submission, again. The text is... There's a lot of text. There's probably a way to simplify this, but... Lyris, solid submission. We got the Mystical Channeler, which is the highest rated card that's not in the top 5. So, the reason I like the idea here is it reminds me of a concept that I had when... early on in the game of prismatic cards, which is what I call them, which are essentially colorless cards with no aspect that gain different abilities based on what aspects you have. And this is exactly what it is. It costs 2 of any aspects, and then depending on what aspects you have, you can activate the ability and do something. Now, apparently this says, according to what Hikari wrote, you can only activate it once per play, meaning every time you play her, so not once per turn. So you can either give a buff if you have white and red. You can play a spell for free, although you have to pay 2 mana, so that's probably not that great. Actually, no, it's good because you could ramp out a Cataclysm, essentially. And then the last effect, you can kill something, you take some damage. So, good idea, though this card is probably not properly balanced. To be fair, balancing something like this is not easy. Picking the right color combos is difficult, and picking appropriate effects is difficult. But this is definitely the kind of card I would like to see in Spellweaver, because it's a card that works differently in every deck. And that's great. I thought Shifting Orite, aka Chicken, would be like that. Unfortunately, because Swift is so powerful, it always works the same way. It just swifts you for massive amounts of damage. Disappointing, right? But this card is pretty cool. Moving on. We got the Flame Rune Shaman from Vitamin C. A little bit of support for the emblem mechanic. Creatures with target emblems are not healed between turns. That's kind of neat, I guess. I'm not really sure how good that is, but it's kind of cool. And then for 1 mana and exhaust him, you can put a target emblem on an enemy creature, or actually any creature, although I don't know why you'd want to hit your own. And then if it has an emblem already, deal 1 damage. So yeah, it's a fair addition to the emblem lineup. The emblem lineup is pretty terrible right now, so this card would not be enough to make it playable, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think if there were more good emblem-related cards, you might run this. It is a goblin and a shaman, but neither goblins nor shamans are going to play this card. But a cool idea. Little support for the emblems. Couple more cards like this, and maybe that theme would be something. Well, we move on. We got the Swampland Protector from Zikrik. Of this one, Nature Corruption, you can spend the 2 energy that he has and 3 mana. Oh no, you spend 3 mana to give him 2 energy. And then for the 2 energy, which he starts with, You can sacrifice a friendly creature, and then the enemy hero sacrifices creatures with a combined level of 1 or more. So this is kind of like the way Bezarok works, where you have to sacrifice creatures based on their level. Here, you have to sacrifice first, but because they have to sacrifice with 1 more level, you could probably set it up that you get a pretty favorable trade. The card has kind of bad stats, but considering that the effect is pretty powerful, I could actually imagine this being played. If Nature and Corruption were going to make a deck, this probably would be there, because it starts with 2 energy, which means you can immediately activate the effect. And if you sack, let's say, a 2-aspect creature, they have to sack a 3-aspect creature, or they have to sack 2 creatures. So pretty cool way to give Nature some removal. No, solid card. I wonder, though, if it's not overpowered, because there is no limit to how many times you can activate the first ability. So with enough mana, you can just give him like 6 energy, and then like sack a bunch of creatures and just keep clearing the enemy board. Maybe it's fine because you have to keep sacking creatures. It's difficult to tell whether it be OP or not, but the idea of the card is pretty good. So also a high-rated quality submission by Zekric. We got the Keeper of the Pledge here by Ada Dracena. Now, this card is not a mage, but to be perfectly honest, he could have just made this a mage and have this support mages instead. So I'm not really gonna like dock points or anything. It's still a really cool card. The fact that it can block from the support line is actually really awesome. It's like it is flying, but only on defense, which in Magic the Gathering, I believe is called Reach, where you can block flyers, but you can be blocked by non-flyers yourself. So it's like you're flying on defense only. That's pretty cool. I think the idea is really neat. The second ability is a bit expensive, but it's interesting because since he loses his power and gains flying, he would be able to attack as a 5/5. I think it's actually really neat buff for Knights. Not even sure if he's playable, just because Knights already are kind of... They already run a lot of really powerful cards. Like the Descendant of Divinity doesn't make the cut, so I'm not really even sure this would. And you'd have to splash red. But you know what? It's a step in the right direction. And just, I would like to see creatures be able to block from the support line. That'd be really awesome, because they could protect your health, and you wouldn't have to worry about them getting killed for free, like is usually the problem. Cool idea. The art is perfect, by the way. And actually, as I read this, yeah, apparently this is already in the game. It's just not been made into a card. So we might see this bad boy as a card. And it's probably going to be a Knight. And it might even be Enrage. And it might even be this card. How amazing would that be if this was actually the card the developers made? Anyways, good submission. We got the Sadistic Flame Adept by Zaralon. So this one is kind of interesting. So it deals damage to friendly creatures. The idea is to support things like Rocky Berserker and the Forced Labor card, where you damage an orc, and that it's no longer a slave, and that makes another slave be able to attack. So it's pretty cool. That deck does need a little bit of support, so this could help. The second effect is really interesting, where if he kills an allied creature, he can deal damage to another creature equal to your rage level. Now, it doesn't specify, but I assume he can kill himself, because it says allied creature and not another creature. So that means, at worst, you could just ping himself and do like 2 or 3 damage to a creature. That's actually really good, and it would make running Mono Rage possibly solid, because this card is almost as good as Word of Fire in that sense, where it's essentially removal equal to your rage level. But this is also a creature, so it could be used to support other things. So, really neat idea. The art is really weird, but, I mean, it's fine. The idea of the card is really solid. Good job, Zaralon. This is the last non-top 5 card. The Master of Emblems. Basically, it's kind of like Bloodseeking Mutant. It puts a weakness emblem on something, but it also puts a might emblem on another creature. And then for 2 mana, you can move the emblems around. That's kind of a neat idea. I think it's a bit impractical. I mean, moving weakness emblems, I guess it's kind of neat. But because it's not Dominion, it wouldn't really... It can't really be synergized with like Bloodseeking Mutant and Cathedral, which is where you would want to use this guy. But the idea is kind of cool. So yeah, we'll give points to. Hang on a second. I skipped the name. Oh, Dorian. Cool card. So now we move on to the top 5 submissions, which were my favorite. And let me tell you, picking between those 5 was pretty tough. But there was one detail that made the winner a winner. And it's probably a nitpick. But honestly, that's all I had. I couldn't think of a better reason. Anyways, the number 5 best card of the 4th contest. We got the Elementalist Duo by Ryan. So, it seems straightforward, but it's actually really cool. Think of this as an upgraded Disciple of Zash with slightly better stats, more expensive, but has the ability to freeze creatures. So it fits perfectly into the Rage Wisdom deck. Generally, the way that deck would work is you run a whole bunch of spells, including freezing, including like fireballs and stuff, and you have a lot of removal ability. This guy adds even more to that because you can either freeze or deal damage. Now, he is a little slow, but he does stick on the board, and if your opponent can't kill it, it's actually going to be a pain in the ass. Being able to freeze creatures, like, for free, well, not for free, but, you know, without having to spend cards, that's really good. So this card probably would make the cut in that control deck. It's really cool. In Trials, if you're going blue and red, or in Draft, this card would be terrifying. Very cool card. I actually would like to see this in a game. By the way, the art is really funny. The Goblin Blast Mage from Hearthstone, and I don't know what the other one is. But really fun way to do the card art. Anyways, number 4, we've got the Dark Mage by Yafras Ferrans. A very neat idea. Basically, the effect is put a Might Emblem on an enemy creature, and you draw 3 cards, and then this gains 1 energy, and when this leaves the field, you discard equal to how much energy it has, basically based on how many times you use the effect. So, what I like about this card is that it has a big positive effect, but it also has a negative effect on the enemy. Now, drawing 3 cards is probably... No, it's definitely completely ridiculous, because that's a 1 mana draw 3. Like, Ancient Wisdom is 2 mana draw 2. Yes, you discard 1 card, but draw 3, discard 1 is almost always better than just draw 2. So the effect is a little too powerful, I think. But the idea is, I think if you just make it draw 2 cards, that'd be perfectly fine. But you have to buff an enemy creature, so, you know, you don't want to do this against an aggressive deck, because they'll just kill you faster. But I do like this concept of make an effect that's really good for you, but also good for your opponent, so that both sides get something good. I'm actually a really big fan of this idea. I touched on this way back when I was discussing crazy, ridiculous stuff like positive value and negative value when comparing Library Guards and Mutant. Well, this is just a ton of positive value because you get cards and then your opponent gets an extra buff. That's awesome. I think just tune down the card a little bit and it's perfect. Also, the art seems to fit really well, even though I cannot determine the gender of this creature. But it doesn't matter. Cool card. Moving on to number 3. We've got Eadrich, the Lady of Tears, submission by Raveneer. I actually wanted to put this card at number 1, but unfortunately the text is just way too messy. There's way too many effects on this card. That last one for 3 mana where it gains deadly, you could just cut that off, honestly. It has plenty of abilities. So the card itself, support and flying, that's actually kind of pointless. If it has flying, it's basically better than support. So you can sack a creature and gain 3 more energy. Then you can spend 4 energy to make your opponent sack a creature. And then you can spend X energy to make a hero discard that many cards. And now the real fun, if you have 3 corruption aspects and 1 generic, whenever a creature is sacrificed, you steal 2 life. So, basically, if you play this with 4 aspects and you have 3 other creatures on the board, you sack those 3 creatures. This gains, 9 energy, and then you can spend all the energy to make the enemy sack 3 creatures. And then 6 creatures have been sacrificed, and you steal 12 life from your opponent. Good times! I like this. So, this card is kind of awesome because it's like this giant finisher for like an Enoch deck. Like you have a whole bunch of zombies or something. You drop this lady on the board, and man, you're stealing like 10 life guaranteed. Really, really powerful card. Again, I would have gladly put it at number 1, but the text is just a little too much. You're trying to fit too many effects into one card. Just cut off that last part, space it out a little, and it's there. This is definitely a really, really awesome card. Moving on to number 2. We got Elmont, Dragon Bond Mage by Jabix. And really, the only reason this card is number 2 and the other one is number 1 is because of a small detail which I'll mention when I get to number 1. So, similar idea, it's a big finisher. This one synergizes with Rage. It starts with 0 energy, which is very important for the balance. So, you have to actually play a spell with it. And then if you do, you get a free dragon. Now, the dragon in question is this. It's just a 4-mana 4/4. It doesn't say it's flying. I assume it's flying. I mean, maybe it's not flying. But I mean, even a 4/4 beat stick, that's pretty good value. You drop Elmont later on, and you can easily summon like 2 or 3 dragons. It's a similar kind of threat to Elder Red Dragon, but it's a little slower in that you're not immediately burning their face. But on the other hand, I mean, if they don't have like a Cataclysm, they're going to lose very soon. You can play Elmont and play like 2 spells. You get 2 4/4s. That's pretty good. So I really like this idea of like this value legendary. It's one of the reasons I really like a Wolf Tongue, because he can generate a lot of value. But this can generate even more, and it encourages you to play rage spells. That's awesome. And another good way for Jabix to avoid for this being overpowered is that you need 3 energy to do this. If it said just 1 energy and then you gain 1 energy from a spell, it'd be clearly broken, because you could play this on top of a charged Aurite and easily summon like 5 dragons. That would be stupid. Or you could just use like a unstable reactor to just pump its energy. But because it's 3, putting together 3 energy is not that easy. This is why Mescation Phoenix is not broken, because it's not so easy to give it back the 3 energy to make it come back a second time. So, well done, Jabix. Overall, a really awesome card. The art looks like something out of Yu-Gi-Oh! No idea what it is, but well done. I actually would like to see this card in the game. Top marks for Jabix. And the number 1 card. And it gets number 1 because it's just, you know what? Let's get to it. Let's get to it first. It's actually the last submission. It's Arioch by Crazy People, who basically got 2nd place in the previous contest. What is it with these players just going back to back with ridiculously awesome cards? So Arioch, legendary, support flying, doesn't matter. It basically just says flying. When it enters play, both players mill 3. Then you can sack a card you control to make a player mill 3, and then he gets a Mind Emblem. So again, this one is another finisher, just like the previous 2. This one specifically for the mill decks, it's pretty powerful for mill decks, because that's automatic mill 3 when he comes in. And sacrificing a card, you can sacrifice himself, but more realistically something like a token, or even a Burning Rage, anything. It's just a card you control, so it could be anything. And that's another mill 3, and he gets a little bit bigger. Now, the main threat of this card, I think, is with Azarus. Because if Azarus is on the board, this dude could get like 3 triggers immediately when he comes in. And he's a demon himself. So you can search him out with Dark Portal. Again, it's a bit dangerous, but hey, it's pretty awesome. So the reason this card gets number 1, and I know this is nitpicking, but just because how cleanly the card design is. Remember when I was talking about Idrich? It was just so packed with effects. Arioch, you can easily see, you know, well separated, very efficient text. You can quickly see what's going on. So it's just perfect. It's got everything going for it. It's a cool new card. It supports an existing archetype in a big way. And it's just awesome, and the text is just perfectly laid out. So it's got everything going for it. That's why it gets number 1. Okay, the support and flying thing, I'm gonna overlook that because it's not really a big deal. It's just the support is meaningless. I guess it shouldn't have flying. It doesn't really matter if it is flying. But yeah, really, really awesome card. So, well done, everyone. As is traditional, we'll let Crazy People choose the next theme. Now, Crazy People was given this choice previously because YS Chaos won a 2nd time. However, I slightly hijacked his idea previously because it wasn't specific enough. So I'm going to give you another chance to come up with a theme, but try to be a little more specific this time. Like I took your theme and made it, okay, it has to have an activated ability, right? And it has to be on the support row. Something like that. Just saying it has to be a mage, you could make any card a mage without really changing how it works. So think of something specific. If you don't care, you can just let someone else pick, or I'll pick. Doesn't matter to me. What I know is more awesome cards are on the way, and these cards are just getting better and better. Even though this is only 15 submissions, these were some of the highest quality submissions I've seen. Basically, no bad cards. Okay, YS Chaos went a little bit with it on the more joke theme with his Morgana card, but you know what? Even that card was kind of cool. So, as always, it's been fun. Stay tuned till the next one. When I'm done editing the video, I'll post the new thread. Custom card contest number 5. Once Crazy People chooses a theme, it'll be off to the races. I hope you enjoyed. I'm your host, The Fuzz. I have a silly hat. I'll see you next time.